Aloha!
Aloha, everybody.
You know who these people are, Jim?
That looks like a few people out there I know, yeah.
I've seen some of these people before.
Yeah.
Aloha, how are you? We are here. This is Jim, Reverend Jim Kimmel, and I'm Jason Schwartz, and we're going to be sitting and doing questions and answers once again for the Urantia Book, or about the Urantia Book. Jim will tell you here in a moment, but the Urantia Book was written, when was it put into form? Mid-30s, 1930s?
It came into existence in 1934 and 1935.
I see.
It wasn't released to the public until 1955.
Oh, I see.
So it's a big book.
And who is it written by?
The book is written by a number of authors, all of whom are superhuman beings that constituted a truth-revealing commission that came to our planet in 1934 and 35 and presented these 196 papers that consist of the Urantia Book to the human race. It's a gift from God. It has 196 papers. A divine counselor is one of the authors. A perfecter of wisdom, a mighty messenger, one high in authority, and the chief of archangels, a brilliant evening star, a Melchizedek. These are all different orders of beings that make up this truth-revealing commission that presented all these revelations.
Now, we're going to go into it more, but I would say, if I were going to focus on what this is, there are 4 books. It's broken into 4 little sections.
4 parts.
4 parts.
Mm-hmm.
And each one by itself is a ton of information. To our most usual audience that we seem to have been attracting, in this Western Christendom, Jesus has been a big focus. And in this book, too, Jesus is quite prominent, and, you know, depending on where we start in conversation, some of you already know that from reading the book with Jim and asking questions, that Jesus was and is the what? The Prince of Peace.
He's the Prince of Peace. He's the sovereign creator of our universe. And he was the sovereign creator of our universe before he became the Prince of Peace.
And the name of Jesus is the name he used while on earth.
Joshua ben Joseph was his given name as a male boy.
I see. And he was conceived and arrived in Mary, right? With Joseph and Mary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was he an immaculate conception?
No, there was no immaculate conception. No such thing as an immaculate conception. Jesus was born into the world in every way just like we are, like we were. So that story that he was of immaculate conception was a made-up story. It's another one of the false facts that has come down through Christianity in the last couple thousand years.
I would say, you know, I grew up Jewish, but to me, what I get and what grabs me most about the life of Jesus, the thing that is most significant is the life that he led and who and what he was and what he taught and what he was. Whereas when I look and think about Christendom, I think about them idolizing Jesus, but not really living as he lived, which to me is quite out of sorts.
It's out of sync.
And, you know, I've heard Christians talk about how the Jews killed Jesus, you know, that he put him in front of the Romans and all this stuff. To me, all that is history, and it's good history, and I know that what I like about this book is it really, the 4th part of this gets into more depth. What I like is it really shares about who Jesus was, and I feel much more comfortable reading what he was about and what he was preaching from here. somehow I feel more comfortable with Jesus as a real person through reading this.
Well, the real story of the real life of Jesus, he is not only a real person, the most ideal person ever walked on the planet. He was the creator of our universe incarnate as a human being. Now, this only happens once in 10 million worlds in each of these local universes that ours is one of, and he is the creator of. So it's quite a unique experience for any planet in any part of the universe to have the creator of their universe bestow himself as one of them amongst themselves. And so, like, this is what Jesus did a couple thousand years ago.
Many times when I hear people that have talked about the Urantia book, they are a little uncomfortable when they realize that this world, the earth, Urantia, is not unique, and that the creation of life on this world, and this was somehow the only place in the universe where life was created. Kind of high and mighty of them in thinking that.
This is just because we don't know the history of our world. I mean, it's impossible to understand today's world without an understanding of a very specific event that took place on our world a couple 100,000 years ago. Namely, it was a planetary rebellion of the spiritual ruler of our world against the law of the universe and the will of God. And as a consequence of our planetary prince betraying the trust of the world, our world, along with 36 others, were quarantined, and all the communications links between worlds and other worlds were severed, and we've been in isolated existence and quarantine for the last 200,000 years. You know, when Jesus came here as a human being, one of his missions, one of the things he had to do while he was here was to bring an end to the Lucifer rebellion on the spiritual level. And he did that. And as a consequence, the case of Gabriel versus Lucifer is pending in the higher courts of our super universe. And today, we've got the Spirit of Truth in us. We have the will of God within us, and all this is a consequence of the life that Jesus lived on this world while he was here as a human being.
Well, he lived here and he died.
Mm-hmm.
And
As
now,
a human being, he died.
as a human being, he died.
Yeah.
Okay. His spiritual essence
His personality and his spirit are the same as they have always been.
and still exist
Exactly.
in a spiritual plane.
Yes.
Is there much conversation about communication from the spiritual plane to the physical plane, and how? I mean, that's always to me a gray area of how to communicate.
Well, we're communicating with the invisible at the moment. At the same time, we're communicating with the visible. So, as we sit here talking to one another, we're talking to God, and we're talking to Jesus. Is now known as Michael. Michael is the name of our Creator Father, the sovereign Creator of our universe, is known as Michael of Nebadon, and Nebadon is the name of our universe. So this is like geography on a larger, deeper level. So, like, just a matter of getting acquainted with new terms and getting acquainted with the depth and breadth of space, and the fact that we are all part of a very friendly, inhabited universe.
Okay. I think that what you said is it's important not to have people feel diminished. People that believe in Jesus, they can still believe in Jesus, can't they? This is really not in any way negating what they're doing, is it?
It's not negating anything. It's adding to what they've already got, and enriching it, ennobling it, and adding substance that they've never heard nor seen to it.
Well, to me, that would be, and I mean, as a Jew, I feel that's exciting because it makes Jesus more available and approachable as a man. His spiritual essence and what he was and what he is I don't feel in conflict with it.
His spirit of truth is in us. It's part of our birthright. His spirit of truth is the living presence of the Prince of Peace, the sovereign creator of our universe.
So would you say it's fair to say that whether or not our audience, anyone or any of us, believe that Jesus was anything, that living by the principles that he was living and embracing a lifestyle based on what he taught is a really beautiful foundation for peace?
Well, the peace is based on fact. Peace is a spiritual truth that's based on a physical fact that comes from the creator of our universe. The peace that we experience in our lives is our direct connection to the Prince of Peace. That's where peace comes from. Like truth comes from the source of truth, and facts come from the source of facts. So it's a matter of getting acquainted with the facts and the meanings and the values of life, because it's a big universe and there's a lot to learn and it's a lot of fun.
We were looking yesterday and talking, and you were sharing with me a time when, after Jesus was put up on a cross and was then seen again numbers of times, which I found that very not only interesting, it was interesting to see that there's so much more full of a story than I've been able to get from reading the Bible. I want to say the Christian Bible, but I don't know if that's the right words to use.
Well, we're in a Christian paradigm, right? Well, it's Christian, Muslim, Judaic paradigm. These are the three major. Maybe there's a lot more. There's a lot more religions, but all of the diverse religions in today's world are manifestations of the fact that Jesus was not accepted as the creator of our universe like he should have been. And because he was not accepted and his teachings weren't given to the people who were supposed to bring them to the people of the world, we're in a world of spiritual darkness where everybody's divided. The world is about as spiritually divided as it could possibly get as a consequence of the last 2,000 years of people not knowing what the true facts really are about Jesus and what he taught and the way he lived on the world. We've got just a hint of the whole story, and it's a sad shame to me that the Bible teaches the people who read it that they shouldn't accept any knowledge beyond the borders of the books of the Bible. And that's one of the biggest problems of the Bible. It teaches people not to want to find something new. And this is the newest thing on earth that details about God and Jesus like nothing has ever been revealed on our world before.
Well, I don't understand when you say that they're instructed not to go further than. Does it say it in the book itself? No.
Book of Revelations. In the Book of Revelations, it their interpretation. I can't quote it because I don't remember.
Sure, that's right.
But their interpretation of what it says is that beware anything that comes from elsewhere. Anywhere that comes from elsewhere that talks about the things that are in the Bible, because they believe it's a false teaching. Just like kids believe Santa Claus.
Why would someone be afraid
of the truth?
Well, as I'm reading it, it's not any different than the Bible, except it's in more depth. Yes. It's like having something that gives more shades of color and describes things in more detail and enhances.
Part 3 of this book is the history of our world, and it details how the Bible came into existence. Everything about the Bible that you could ever possibly want to know is in part 3 of this book. And whatever the New Testament has about Jesus, you have everything that there's in the New Testament in thousands of % more in part 4 of this book.
And it's not like teachings that are in any way contrary to what I've seen Christians talk about Jesus. It just really, like I say, it gives more color and more form to it. I would think that would be a welcome.
It's like having a script to the movie of his life. And any Christian who loves Jesus and doesn't want to have anything to do with discovering what he has made available. The Prince of Peace has made this book available to the people of this world. And the Christians need it now more than ever in their existence, because it's a matter of life and death for them and this planet, as a matter of fact.
Do you guys understand that? I mean, I imagine some of you do. We're going to be...
It's fact versus fiction.
Well, I have...
Survival versus extinction.
That's fairly big.
That's where it's at. That's the basic, that's where we're at in today's world, skating on thin ice.
So what would happen if people embraced this book and took the knowledge in? It would still take their actions, the living. To me, that's the essence. It would living as Jesus lived.
It would contribute to their spiritual transformation as human beings. As a human being, we're more than just physical. We're mindful, we're spiritual, and we're personal. And we have a source of reality, an absolute source for every part of our existence. And this book explains it all magnificently. It's here to bring us together and unite us as a family of sons and daughters of God. We're all sons and daughters of God, and it's one big world family. And this book can help us integrate ourselves into the family of all mankind righteously and peacefully.
Well, that sounds like a good dream. So, it seems like a good dream that's easily understood. And you're saying it's a dream. It's not a dream, it's a reality. It's a way that we can actually physically come upon agreement and peace.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say that most wars have happened through people feeling there's a lack and that there's not enough? And I am constantly wondering what it is that makes people want to continually fight and separate.
Well, the struggle for life on this world has been about land, and the land-man ratio and the land issue is the basic thing underlying all civilization. So this struggle for land has been translated into a struggle for global dominion on the part of a few people who see themselves as specifically chosen by God to have dominion over the natural resources and the people and the nations of the world. So, like, in order to attain the goal that was set in 1897 by the World Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland, every war from 1897 on has been created, has been a matter of the outworking of the will of the people who wanted to attain global dominion over the rest of the world. And
that was basically, it seems, just based on greed.
That's all it is. Greed, power, and misbelief. The whole thing has to do with believing a false fact. We can believe true facts and false facts. A false fact is a Santa Claus story. Santa Claus is a false fact.
Huh. Okay.
Of all things.
All right.
But in the course of our lifetime, we're going to be discovering that we've been taught a lot of things that are supposed to be true, and they're not. And this is part of the disillusionment that every individual goes through in the course of his life. We have to discover the fact that our mom and dad lied to us when they taught us about Santa Claus. The Sunday school teachers lied to us when they taught that God created the heavens and the earth in a week, and that Noah was the only survivor of the human race in the worldwide flood. All these are examples of false facts. And because we believe a mixture, our minds are befogged and befuddled because We just don't. Given all the facts, you can understand everything. But when you slip belief in with all these different facts and you got 50% beliefs and 50% facts, it's a mixed bag. And you can't see clearly because you've got, your mind is filled with false facts and true facts. And you cannot help but be confused because of the outlook of on life through befogged vision.
When I hear you talk, it reminds me that you come from a scientific logic background and direction. And so when I think of you as a man of religion, to me that's an interesting combination because you logically arrive there.
I'm religious because I'm scientific. Science deals with facts. That's all. Science. The word science simply means knowledge, and knowledge deals with facts. The more facts you know, the more truth will be revealed to you. And if you get a lot of true facts, you'll be given a lot of truth that goes with each of the facts.
Would it be appropriate to find the section where Jesus talks about peace? Does he talk about peace specifically, or he just talks about a way of living and treating each other and everything that creates peace?
Well, one thing he said, he didn't come to bring peace. He said, "Don't think not that I came to bring peace." There will be wars and rumors of wars. So, as the Prince of Peace, he wasn't coming here to establish peace on earth and goodwill among all men. He came to establish the foundation for it, what do you call the infrastructure, so to speak, that would lead up to the phenomena of personal peace and world peace for everybody in the world, only it would be on a natural, progressive, evolutionary level, the outworking of progressive evolutionary choices by the people on the planet.
So his arrival, and like you said, some people didn't recognize who and what he was talking about, and now we're here 2,000 or so years later. What do you see or expect is happening now that is driving things toward this great awakening?
Well, there's a great need for it, for one thing. I mean, many people have no idea, but God has given us, amongst everything else, the incredible power of free will choice. And the freedom to choose is underneath all good and all evil. Everything is a matter of choice, whether it's a good choice or an evil choice, a sinful choice or a righteous choice. Everything is a matter of choice. And willpower is God power, and we're sons and daughters of God. The book teaches that what the people of the world need most to know is that we're all sons and daughters of God. And through simple faith, everybody can realize and daily experience this ennobling truth. So once we know ourselves for what we are and who we are, we're sons and daughters of God. Who's God? God's the creator of our universe. He's the source of everything in our universe, everything in infinity. And we're direct sons of the infinite Father of every person in infinity. So this should uplift everybody's self-respect to the maximum level possible. I mean, it's our cosmic identity.
So when the Christians talk about the only way to the Father is through me, what does that mean? Is there any reference to anything like that?
Oh, of course. No question about it. It's like if you take a human anatomy lesson, so to speak, you see the visible human being is our physical body. You don't see the mind in the person. You don't see the spirit in the person. And you don't see the personality of the person. We're looking at 4 dimensions of reality: personality, spirit, mind, and physical matter. Those are 4 different dimensions of reality.
You know, every time the phone rings, there was another question, you know. One of your fellow viewers just called And we're going to talk about his subject next. We'll read about that, in fact. He was asking about a thought adjuster.
What is a thought adjuster?
Is now a good time to talk about it? Should we jump?
It's always a good time to talk about
Okay.
thought adjusters. A thought adjuster is God within each of us. It's the name that is given to the fragment of the Spirit of God within us, is a fragment of His will. The thought adjuster is the will of God in each of us.
Is the thought adjuster the Spirit of truth?
No, the
No.
thought adjuster is not the Spirit of truth. That's a separate entity.
I see.
It works in harmony with and as one with the thought adjuster. Oh, now, we were talking about the Christians saying you can only get to the Father through the Son type
Yeah,
thing. Okay,
yeah.
now, as we go inward in ourselves, within ourselves, as we go inward, as a person, we're in our mind, we're sitting in our mind, and we can look earthward, we can look toward all the physical reality, which is a natural thing we do every day, and with our mind, and in our mind, we can look spiritward. It's like looking inward, because the Spirit of the will of God, the thought adjuster, is within our mind, and our mind is within our human presence. It's not within an organ. It's a circuit. Our mind is like a circuit of mindal energy that is bestowed on each of us by our Creator Mother. Our mind has a source, just like our body has a source. The source of our body is our physical parents, our mom and dad.
Okay.
The source of our Spirit of truth is the Creator of our universe. The will of God is the source of the will of God is our Paradise Father, the infinite and universal Father of everybody on Paradise.
So, like you say, our physical presence was from our parents.
Mm-hmm.
Our mindal presence is from our mother, meaning
Our Creator Mother.
Creator Mother.
See, and the Spirit of truth is from our Creator Father.
And whether we get this and understand where it came from or not, would it be fair to say that living in truth and living with principles that were shared with us and are shared with us here are the most important thing? Whether someone reads the whole book and knows the history of where they came from, the essence of the Spirit of truth as it relates to the most important fact, which is we're all sons and daughters of God. We're relation. All of us should find that to mean driving toward peace and giving and acceptance and loving and sharing.
Being more godlike.
Right?
If we're sons and daughters of God, it seems natural that we should sooner or later become increasingly godlike.
So where does the fight come from?
The fight comes from our natural born ignorance, plus the fact of free will. The fact and the meaning and the value and the source of free will. Free will is the root of all of the problems and all of the discoveries, all of the positives and all of the negatives of life. Free will choice.
Okay.
You can make the right choice and a wrong choice. You can follow the right choice as far as you can take it, which will take you to the kingdom of heaven. And you can follow the wrong choices and it'll take you as far as they can take, which is, the wages of sin is death. So cosmic suicide is possible just like human suicide is possible. If you go so far and do so much against the will of God and the laws of the universe that the will of God leaves your presence, you're like a dead human being. And so this is the inevitable consequence of the misuse and abuse of one's free will to the point you commit cosmic suicide as a human being and don't even know it.
So I'm going to kind of drive us back to the book because I think people have asked me a couple of times, we do questions, but if I were going to look for a source in this book to really help enhance understanding about, what was I say, everyone must go through me, that, and also, so thought adjuster in all of us, which is a spark and a fragment of God.
Is God. The
Right.
thought adjuster is the presence of God. The will of God is like this equivalent to the sperm of man, so to speak.
Okay.
The will of God is the source of everything that comes from any personality who draws on and uses willpower.
Okay.
Willpower is God power, and God is will. God is personality. You can't separate the two. Well, you can. Our thought adjusters are pre-personal, just like our sperm is pre-personal, pre-physical.
Okay. So we have a free choice. If we were to be reading this, if people were reading this, it would help enhance their understanding of principles of, quote, good living.
Well, Jesus taught that you reap what you sow. The fact that you reap what you sow means that you get just what you choose. You know, you're a will creature. At base level, we're will creatures. We have willpower. And with this power, we do everything. We think, we talk, we act, we react, and we analyze the consequences of the use and the misuse of all this incredible power that God has given us. We have the freedom to go the right way or the wrong way. The consequence of that is what's divided the world today. There are two major groups of people in the world from God's view: those who know Him and those who don't. Those who want to do His will and those who don't. And these two groups of humanity are going in equal and opposite directions. And we're heading toward heaven on earth. And we've already got hell on earth because it's been created over the last 100 years. In every war that we've had, war is hell. And hell is a man-made production, and it's real. It's not like the bullshit they put out in Hollywood. 200 million, over 200 million people have died as a consequence of this group of humanity going in equal and opposite directions. And the ones going the wrong way have been using every one of us going the right way. Every one of us has to pay taxes that fuels the fire of the lust for global dominion. And until people become aware of the fact of what's really going on in our world and stop paying taxes, hey, we're going to continue to go toward world peace and group extinction. So it's up to you folks. You want world peace and group survival, or world war and group extinction? Because they're both matters of free will choice. And we're skating on very thin ice that separates the two of these great, incredible realities.
So what do we do now? I mean, we can cite conflicts all over the world that are happening. How do we have to let these things go their course? Do we intervene and try to stop the killing first? Where do we and how do we instill this knowledge in the people? Is it a quick process? Is it
we're suffering the consequences of over 100 years of the world, the victimization of the people of the world by a minority of people who want to dominate the majority.
But there were wars before that, right?
Well, there were wars, but they weren't for the same purpose.
Right.
Yeah, there's been wars ever since man's been on earth. We're born from fighting animals. Man evolved from fighting animals. Fighting is man's natural thing. You dig? So, like, peace isn't. I mean, we have to learn peace. We have to learn there's something better than just might makes right. Much more than might makes right. Truth and fact is what makes right. And until we get the truth and the facts separated from the fiction and the lies, we're going to have a very divided world. It's inevitable. This book is given to us by the creator of our universe so that we can survive as members of his family and enjoy what God has made available to every one of us. He loves every one of us, whether we're against him or for him. He loves each of us with an infinite love, whether we're friendly toward him or don't believe in him. I was an atheist most of my life, but God didn't give up on me. In fact, he saved me from the end of my life, which would have existed, would have gone out of existence if I had not been saved by discovering the truth that there is a God as a scientist. And so, like, as a scientist, I changed my mind. I went from thinking there is no God, I went from believing there is no God to knowing God. Once you know somebody, it's not a matter of belief. You know them, and I know God. It's not a matter of believing in God. I was an atheist. I was arguing with anybody and everybody that there is no God. And look at where that faction has brought the rest of the world. I left the people in the world who are believing like that. All the atheists that I worked with down at the Nevada test site in the years I was on the nuclear weapons testing frontier were all atheists. The President of the United States is an atheist. Most of the United States government people are all atheists. And the fact that they don't do what God wants them to do, they're doing to other people all over the world what they would never want done to themselves, thinking it's the right thing to do. And that's pretty crazy. And that's pretty dangerous. And when you stop to think about it, hey, what can you do about it? The Declaration of Independence says, after a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce the people under absolute despotism, it is not only their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to institute new guards for their future security. That's what the Declaration of Independence says, the very first of all of the defined rights of the American people is right there on the front page of the Declaration of Independence, and they don't want you to know about it because you might exercise that right. You have the right to do so. And you've got it. It's a matter of choice. We have, the U.S. government is a de facto government. It's not the de jure government. It's not the legitimate government. The U.S. government, the legitimate, if there ever was a legitimate U.S. government, it has been overthrown, and the de facto government in its place is in charge. It's that simple.
It's a lot for people to swallow or know what to do. What can people do as individuals?
Hey, pray for peace on earth and goodwill among men, because that puts spiritual pressure on the system. That is appealing to the invisible powers of the universe to help us, help ourselves do what we need to do to make it the way it ought to be. We're all equipped to recognize the fact, the meaning, and the value, the fact, the law, and the love of God. And if we get in sync, hey, the golden rule hasn't gone out of existence. People who don't live the golden rule can live it. You can always do to somebody else what you would want them to do to you. That's what it's all about. Loving one another, helping one another, serving one another. It's a family affair. It's not, hey, neighbors. It's brother and sister. The neighbors of everybody, every neighbor on the planet is a son or daughter of God. So it's a family affair, much deeper than a neighborhood.
Well, you know, you brought up free will and free choice, and so often I feel people don't take the responsibility for leaving a good wake, if you will. They're living for themselves. They talk about living for the future generations, but even in that, themselves, they feel even in their offspring a separation. So is that going to be something that we hope to see
Disappear.
a change?
Yeah.
How quickly can that realistically disappear?
It could happen overnight if we had access to the global communication systems and people that were interested in control of those communication systems, wanting the truth to be known by the people so we could have world peace.
So what do we do? We're putting information out like this and directing people to more facts in a Urantia book.
Yeah, well, the Urantia Book is like a lifesaver that's been thrown to the planet. It's like it's more than a lifesaver. It's a lifeboat. It's got, it's got everything in it that's needed for the survival of the individual and the entire human race. And it's all about knowledge and understanding. It's not difficult to understand everything going on our world. Once you know the facts of life, enough of the facts of life. I mean, we're born 100% ignorant of every fact in existence.
What do you think is a good way for people to start reading this book? You've come to, what paper is that there?
That is paper
194. Bestowal of the Spirit of Truth. Where would you recommend, if there's such a thing, for how and where would people jump into this? Because there's a lot to jump into and not really know where to begin.
Well, if you can always look at the index. There's 196 papers or chapters. And just by looking at the titles of these papers in this index of papers is an incredible revelatory experience. Just the titles of the papers and the authors of the papers. It's a major revelation in itself. So you have the titles of 31 papers in part 1. Part 1 deals with the central universe and the super universes and where God exists in paradise. And part 2 deals with the local universe where we are out in space, out in the Milky Way galaxy, out on the edge of the Milky Way galaxy is our local universe. And we're part of the whole Milky Way galactic system, which is made up of 100,000 local universes.
Wow.
So then part 3 is the history of our world, which is phenomenal. Everything about the origin of our planet. It goes back 987 billion years, which is farther than any stretch of imagination the leading edge of science has today. So this takes you way beyond the frontiers of science and deep into the frontier of intellectual and spiritual reality on a cosmic level. And so like the history of our world makes everything about our world understandable. The whole story of the planetary rebellion on our world.
That's in section 3?
That's in section 3. That's a must-read to understand today's world. And part 4 is the life and teachings of Jesus, which is a major epical revelation of everything that he said and did on our world. All the details of his life, his family life, his travels.
So one could jump in where their interest from reading
Anywhere.
the titles.
Just open it anywhere and find something anywhere. Just
And I bet you're available to them for helping guide them, right? You do that.
Always.
You've been doing that now. How long you studying? 44 years?
44 years. I've had the pleasure of sharing this with everybody I could.
Well, and I've met your kids, and they are incredibly happy, peaceful, loving, giving. Good job.
Thank you.
Sometimes I sense your anger. Your anger isn't really anger to me. It seems like frustration.
Well, it's concern. It's deep concern for my fellow man. And it comes from a deep understanding of my fellow man and the truth and the facts of the story of the human race. I love myself and everybody on this world with the supreme love as much as possible. What is frustrating, what I don't like, what I dislike, is all the negative quality consequences that are inhibiting man and prohibiting man from having a better life.
Well, thank you for doing your part. We'll do more questions and answers. please keep the questions coming and your comments. You're going to soon see a Facebook page, which is going to make it easier, I think, for you to be submitting questions so we can deal with them until we start doing a live call-in talk show. But I think combination's a good way to do it.
Yeah, for sure, no question. One thing, one other thing I wanted to mention, August 21st is Jesus' birthday. The birthday of the human Jesus was August 21st in the year 7 BC. And we're going to have a little birthday party out at Maliko Gulch on that day. So you're all invited to the 2020th birthday of the human Jesus. If Jesus were alive today, he'd be 2020 years old on August 21st.
He'd be a wrinkled guy.
But he's not alive as a human being, but he is alive as the Prince of Peace, and his spirit is in you, and you can enjoy his birthday with him August 21st at Maui Gulch.
And no matter what year, we don't know if you'll be seeing this before or after, but jump into the Urantia book and dig in, and please enjoy and start to take it personally. And this has really been a great revelation for me, and I hope to keep exploring, because I know I get a lot of comments from people that see me really appreciating these times that we're spending. And we want your input, we want your questions, and we look forward to sharing more with you again. Thank you again, Jim, for doing this.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for participating. It's been a great pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Much aloha.
Aloha.